Hello and welcome to Let's Program with Cientier. This time, we're going to try to get this spacing thing figured out for this timeline tool. So, I did some thinking between episodes on terms of how I want to handle this. And generally speaking, what I want to do is kind of, there's certain things I want to take into account. So the idea here is that sub-timelines will have a certain amount of spacing applied to their nodes, so they'll be pushed out a certain amount. So that way, their stuff clears, the stuff hanging off of them clears anything that is going to be kind of next to it. So because timelines drop down, I kind of need to do this propagating upwards, as it were. So that way, something at the bottom of the timeline will affect stuff above it, but stuff above one of these nodes doesn't impact it, right? Because it's impacting that. So there's a couple of things that I was trying to decide through on how I wanted to approach this. And one of the big things that I had to decide was, do I want to have the pixels per time change it? So that way, like, I'm taking into account, oh, you're further below me than my thing is, so I don't need to account for you. And I decided I did not want to do that because it's going to become very complicated if timelines have a lot of sub-timelines going on and just gets really complicated. And it can also mess with zoom. It's just going to be very complicated to figure out how to implement that. So I decided against it. And I think it could also be a bit disorienting as you scroll and stuff is like suddenly shifting to the left or the right as you kind of like move it. Probably not too badly so, but it was really like, it's going to be super complicated to implement, and I don't think there's going to be a substantial enough gain in visual impact. If you want to try to figure it out yourself, absolutely go for it. I encourage you to experiment, but I'm not going to bother with it. So the thing that I need to kind of take into account is I need to figure out how wide everything is below me. And to do that, I kind of need to work up. So the other thing that I need to check is below me and to my left. So if for example, we have two split timelines next to each other, I need to take into account the full width of the guy next to me to be able to kind of calculate the position of the guy to my of the position of the guy of where I need to be. I need to take into account the width of the guy to my left. So this is going to end up having to become more complicated for anything that has what I'm going to call a timeline offset. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add timeline. Well, this is going to be an int. Timeline width equals 0, and public int timeline offset equals 0. So this actually is going to be very simple right down here. I'm just going to take my x position and add timeline offset. So at this point, what I need to do is I need to actually calculate out these values. The big thing that I need to start with, and this I'm adding here, it doesn't matter to waste like 4 bytes on tracking some information that I use in a specific spot. So this is going to be sort of like a complicated calculation that I'm going to do. Controls are all where I want them. It's going to be in with this after I process this timeline. And I think I can probably do it after I calculate all of this stuff as well. So what I need to do is kind of, let's add a function. I'm going to call it get timeline width. And the way that this is going to work is fairly complicated. But okay, so I'm probably going to need 2 functions here. So this is going to be a timeline event node root, because that's what we call things with linked lists. And then I'm going to need to get int get timeline width sans sublines. Timeline event node root. So this function is going to be the far more straightforward one. And what it's going to do is it's just going to go while root does not equal null. I'm going to go int width equals 0. If root dot width size dot width is greater than width equals root dot size dot width, return width. There we go. So this is going to calculate out how long any given thing is. So so this is going to be like, I can probably eventually maybe optimize this, but I do not care to do so. My goal is to kind of get this thing done. So the first thing that I need to do is let's see, because if I want the width of this timeline, okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go int width. Starts off with get timeline with sans sublines. So this is going to get how wide this thing is just on raw node power. And I'm going to add the spacer to it because I feel like that's probably prudent. Yeah, because everything has the spacer added to it beforehand. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And then what I need to do here is while root does not equal null, if if there's a way to kind of combine this, I don't think there is though. If root.child does not equal null, then let's see. And then actually I need to make sure I have root equals root.next over here. Otherwise this is going to infinite loop, and I need to add that to the end of this as well. Root equals root.next. Okay. How do I need to handle this? In the end, I'm going to return width. Right. That's that. I think that should be pretty obvious that that's kind of what my eventual goal is. So for this, what I want to do is say root.timeline width equals get timeline width root.child. So if I figure out how wide that is, then my timeline width equals that plus root.width size.width divided by 2. And the reason for this is this timeline comes off halfway through this, right? So I need to maybe I take it into account the other way. I subtract it. No, I don't think so. I think I add it. We'll see. And I can always tweak it once I get some sort of actual functional thing. And let's see. That's going to have the spacer built in from there. But if I have too much spacer, I can always just fix it. Okay, so this right here calculates out its timeline width. And then this thing's Hmm. Hoo boy. So in order to calculate out this thing's timeline width, I need to... Oh boy. Okay, so what I'm hitting into right here mentally is this thing's timeline. If it has a timeline in it, is going to make this thing wider. But if this thing, okay, I don't care about how much this is needing to get offset by. Okay, how am I running this? I need to add. Recursive functions are a little wonky to work with. Because what I'm mentally doing is on the end termination, again, I'm going to the piece of paper. So if I have something like this, then this thing's width is like that. Okay, so this thing's width needs to take that into account. And in order to take that into account, that one needs to take that one into account as well. So I need that thing's width plus that thing's width onto... Okay. Basically what happens is I care about the width of the things below me, not the things above me. So I almost kind of need to run this backwards in a way, if that makes sense, where I probably need to be passing something else to this. Like this line that I've written will get me sort of the width of the child, that child, but it will not take into account how much that needs to be adjusted over for its other children. So what I kind of need is like, this is the base case, right? This right here is the base case where there's no children. So if there's no children, it just returns. We're terminating, we're done, we're good. So then what we need to do is sort of queue up our children's widths. So that way we can add them together appropriately. Do we just need to add all of our children's widths to get our width? So if this timeline width equals that width, then does our width just equal I don't know. I'm just going to do stuff and see what happens. So if I do this right, this is going to get me a pile of useful information that I can then process in the next phase. Then what I want to do here is get timeline width. Do I care about this piece of information? This gets me the total timeline width, and I don't think I care. Events root. Okay, so this should get me, or this should fill in the timeline width values for everything. I do care about like this width though. So I need int all right, I don't need that value. I need get timeline with sans sub the root plus the spacer. Okay. So let me think, because this thing might be able to sort of process this. So I go through all of my children twice. Here, let me do this. let's see, timeline event node. I'm gonna call this router equals root. And then let's have the router go through all of this chicanery. And then let's reset the router to the root. No. No. I want to do this while router's not equal null and router.next does not equal null. Okay, that's going to get me to the end, and then I can unwind, I think. Because, okay, I'm thinking through, I'm in this case, so I just care about where my children need to go. So they need to have that offset be that plus that, right? So that one needs to have its offset be my width, and then that one needs to have its offset be... I need to width and then int width adjusted equals width and then width adjusted. Whoop. I clicked on the wrong thing. It's that. Oh, this is so confusing. Okay. So while router is not equal null, this one can just end router equals router dot previous. So what I'm doing here is I'm going backwards, right? This will go up the thing. So if router dot child does not equal null, then router dot, so I need for this I need to, okay, so I don't actually need to add the width here. I need to add the width here. So this is going to be router dot timeline offset equals width plus equals router dot timeline width. And then this unwraps me. My brain's a little melty right now, and if yours is too, that's fair play, because this is a complicated son of a gun. So I'm just gonna actually I don't need this right now. I'm setting my piece of paper and clipboard aside. So get my width without child timelines. Find the widths of my child timelines. So that happens here. And then offset my child timelines by width increasing as I go up. Return my width. Okay, I think this is the flow of this. I'm going to see if this builds. And I'm going to see if it runs. Because I don't know. So I'm going to add some events. I'm going to put this guy at 15 and this guy at 300 just for fun. And then over here, I'm going to add a standard event, and I'm going to put this at 2, this at 15. I hate those bings. And then this over here, I'm going to add a standard event, split timeline, a split timeline, And I'm going to leave those two at 0, and I'm going to put this at 20. So, relative values, all that jazz. And then let's just go ahead and give this a standard event at 15, and this a standard event at 45. And then let's just give this a split timeline at 0. Sure, let's find out what happens, and that be empty. Okay, so first of all, if I just do this, obviously nothing happens. If I do this, okay. So what have I got going on here? This is coming off of here. And that is not getting stretched out for that, which it should be. Okay, so right now, stuff is not getting stretched, and I do not know why. So this is where I need to go grab some information. Because I don't want to recreate that a bajillion times. So I can just come into my drawing function, click on that, and it makes it redraw, which is really convenient for going in here. And I can just go, this doesn't have a child, this does have a child, what's its timeline offset is 0, which it shouldn't be. Timeline width is 180. So does anything have a, or not that, let's look at this child. Timeline offset, okay, so all my timeline offsets are 0. So what I need to figure out is, why? Why are my timeline offsets 0? Okay. So this is what I'm going to need to look at to figure out why my timeline offsets are 0. And I didn't have to close that. I just realized just now that I am a fool and did not have to close that, but I did like a fool. So, let's see. All right, so just thinking through here, timeline offset equals my width. My width should be set to some value. Because my immediate children need to be offset. Okay, I think. Okay, I'm not sure why this broke. I feel like the logic holds. So I'm going to add some stuff. I'm going to put this guy at 40, this guy at 10, and this guy at 25. I'm going to name this guy 10, and I'm going to name this guy 25, and I'm going to name this guy 40. It's just that way I know what things are. So then I'm going to add a standard event to this. And I'm going to put this guy at 10 and name this guy 1010. And I'm going to add a split timeline at 10 and name this guy 1010 split. Then 25, I want to add a standard event to put it at 40. Shouldn't matter a whole lot, but call this 2540 because that's what it is. And then add an event to this guy. Put him at 4, I guess, and call it 1010 4. Okay. Now, when I bring up this, let's go see what happens. So width is 97. Okay. So I come in here, and I come in here, and my timeline width is who knows what yet. So 98. So we're in this another layer. Does this node have a child? Yes. So we'll get in this another layer. We get a width of 92. Okay. So while router does not equal 0, does not equal null. So we went through there. Child. So this one didn't have any children. So now my timeline width is 146. And we go on to the next one. Not a child. So we just keep going. And we return my width of 98. So then this guy... do we ever go in here? Oh, no, we do not. Wait. Yeah, we will never go in there. Okay. I think I figured out what the bug is. I think that was the bug. Okay, so let's just add a couple split timelines. And let's just add a standard event at 30, so that way we care about them. Go into this add one, a standard event at whatever, and go in this one, add a standard event at whatever. And then let's add a split timeline at the same whatever. Then go over here and add an event at like 10. Okay. What happens? Okay. Now this is working properly. So we have an unnamed event right here, and that pushes this timeline out. So this timeline comes out. We have an event at 7 and 7, and this comes down. It doesn't affect this because it doesn't need to. Although if I had another split timeline at 7, it would definitely be affected by that. It would probably stick out off of that further than it should, but I'm not overly concerned about that. Yeah, like I would have to do extra stuff to account for this sort of thing, which I would not do inside the gigantic thing of doom. I would do it elsewhere. So I might take care of that. And then this is getting offset appropriately for what that thing's width. It looks like everything is being properly spaced, which is real cool. This doesn't actually need to be spaced that wide. Now that I look at it, this is a wider spacing right here as needed. This could just come right there. So I'm not sure where that is coming from. So I have a few things to fix. It might be coming from this guy, depending upon... Yeah, because this guy is counting... Okay, so that is a bug that I need to fix. This guy is counting for this, I think, in its overall width. So I only need to care about the width of things that are below me, not things that are above me or at the same line. So this has just gotten more complicated. Okay. This is where I set the offset. So this needs to... I calculate the width wrong. Okay, I don't need this. I'm going to just set this to 0. And what I'm going to do is right here, I'm going to say if it doesn't have a child, do this, else width plus equals else. Okay, I need two widths that I'm tracking. Because I need the widest standard node below this, and okay, so here's, let's see, int subline width equals 0 and child width equals 0. So what I need right here is else if router dot size dot width is greater than child width equals router dot size dot width. Right, because if, yeah. So then this needs to return subline width plus child width. Because this is going to find the maximum width of a child. So this is going to go through and just like get the timeline widths of all of our children nodes. And then this is going to go back up our children and say, what's the maximum width below you? Add that on. And then this needs to be the subline width accumulates that. So this offset then needs to be child width plus subline width at this particular location. I think this is how this needs to work. And then I think I need to add up here timeline offset probably needs to be, yeah, right here. I need to have this is where I could try to account for additional things to the left. So what I would actually want to do is take oh yeah, okay, this will automatically kind of like negate the timeline offset if there's a something here. But what I need to do is this how do I phrase this? Sorry, I'm mentally thinking through, because what's happening is this will take my previous thing and kind of space it. If my previous thing accounts for my timeline offset, right, in terms of its width, then like I want to, if it doesn't account for it, then I want to adjust my timeline offset by more, or I want to so I think I want to use math.max previous width and timeline offset, and just use whichever one is bigger. So that way, if my timeline offset is smaller than the previous width, it will use the timeline offset instead. But if the previous width is wide enough, it won't use it. But I need to add a line, so let's see. Offset timeline offset adjust. So that's going to be this right here. Okay, but this needs to ask so this can just be 0 for now, and then if previous dot child is equal to null, I do this, else this equals that, else this equals the sum of these. I think that makes sense. So let's see if this kind of fixes some of those problems that I was running into. So standard event at 40, 15, whatever. Add a couple split timelines. Let's put one at 5, the other at 30. Let's call this one 5 and this one 30, so we know what they are. And today's going to run long just because I want to try to get this actually done. So I guess enjoy an extra long episode. I think I'm almost done with this, though. So I want to add a standard event at 6 and a split timeline at 12. I'll call this guy 12. And then here I want to have a split timeline, a standard event, and then a split timeline. So I'm just going to, sure, position those at 0. That's fine. And then 12, let's just add an event at like 15 or something. Okay, let's see what happens with this. Okay. So this is, yeah, I'm not taking this into account right here, see? Interesting, because this is like patentedly worse than what I was doing previously. Okay. Let me think about this. Is this right here, this sort of thing, multiple events at the same date? Yeah, okay. This is looking like it's complicated enough that it's late enough, or this episode is long enough that I'm going to go ahead and cut this episode here, and finish this up next time, I hope, because this is definitely proving to be a very, very complicated problem. As you can see, like, I need to take into account this sort of effect of things going sideways like that, as well as, like, other things, because this is, like, badly overlapping on each other. And I think that there should be some way of fixing this, but I'm going to have to just take a lot more stuff into account than I thought that I did. So, what does that mean? That means that I am not as close to done as I thought I was. Anyway, I'll go ahead and leave it on the screen for the moment. Take care, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the long episode. Bye-bye.